Welcome to the Third Apron Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Sam Quinn. We have not spoken to you in, I believe, a week we last recorded because Yossi and I have both been stuck in the basketball hole watching a lot of games. I think I am up to, there are only a handful of teams I haven't really sat down and watched yet. Yossi, have you seen everybody? Is there anybody you're waiting to see? Where are you at?
I've been pretty busy, but not as much on watching enough basketball. But I've been paying attention to it. I've been wanting to see a lot of the teams we're about to, a little more of the teams we're about to discuss, especially mainly the bad ones, because there are some really exciting players that are starting to break out, and I need to catch up on that a little bit more. How about you?
I I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I think I've seen at least like a quarter of almost everybody. I haven't sat down and watched a full game for everybody, but I think I have a broad awareness of something interesting that's happened for almost everybody. And you bring up the bad teams, it does almost feel like a little bit of a changing of the guard where Washington is like clearly taking a step up to baseline competence at the very least, and Charlotte is sort of in the same boat where they're not at their fully realized forms yet, but they're not like the total drag laughing stocks that they've been. Brooklyn clearly is. Utah seems to be going through their annual. We're a little bit too good to start the season, but don't you worry. Trader Danny will fix that. I don't. I think we're going to start to see some of these younger teams take a little bit of a step, and that's something that we're going to touch on here today. What we're going to do is we're going to go back and forth, and we're just going to share five of our favorite observations, theories, trends, anything that we've seen so far this season, and just talk out some of the more interesting storylines from the first week of games, first 5 days of games, I guess, to this point. Yossi, we'll start with you. Where do you want to start?
I would say let's get the non-basketball stuff out of the way first. The big FBI investigation. We've got I woke up pretty late to this. I saw this news like I
You
woke up.
texted me in like the late afternoon.
Yeah, no, I woke up. I was up. I was working really late the night before Wednesday night. So I woke up at like maybe 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, and I have to backtrack through the notifications and just kind of reverse engineer, see what happened. And we have, I mean, I don't think we need to get too much into details, but Terry Rozier, we already know he has been accused of being involved in some sort of giving insider information so people can hit his unders. He supposedly checked himself out of a game early 2 years ago. And the thing that I still think it's really shocking to me, this is definitely one of the more shocking things, is a head coach getting arrested for and now it's this. They're saying he helped ran an illegal poker table, and this is a thing been going on for years. A lot of people now are speculating that maybe some of his coaching decisions has been influenced by some gambling motivations, possibly. Uh, if you really look, if you want to look deeper, maybe there's some truth to it. But I would say I don't know anything as far as like the macro you want to touch on before we get, because what I want to touch on is just more so some of more like the cap stuff, the minor stuff with like Rozier and the Heat.
Yeah, so I think this is kind of us defining what this show is. Neither of us are lawyers. I don't think there's anything really to be gained by talking about the like, did they do it? What should the punishment be? Blah, blah, blah. We don't really have too much to say about that. I think the things that are worth talking about for us, some of the Rozier stuff I do want to get into. I have some specific transactional notes. I also just want to ask, Portland has named Tiago Splitter the interim coach. So far as I know, they have not made any long-term decisions about Chauncey Billups' future. I guess what I would ask is like, I'm a little unsure, and it feels almost a little bit like Ime Udoka, where it felt pretty quickly like the moment Ime was suspended, he wasn't going to come back, even though they said whatever it was that they said at the time. I can't remember if it was half a season or the full season or whatever. It just seemed pretty clear like this is permanent. We're just not announcing a firing yet. Are we just trending towards like in 2 months, the Blazers just saying we've decided to move on from Chauncey Billups? Does Tiago Splitter have to take that job away by winning? And they won their first game after that. Like, is there any world in which Chauncey Billups, barring like full exoneration, gets this job back? I feel like if you're the Blazers, especially given all the baggage that he came into the job with the sexual assault allegations from, I think, during his playing days, or even maybe before, I can't remember the exact timeline. Given all of that baggage and given everything that comes with this and the reputational hit you've taken, I kind of feel like you can't bring Chauncey back. Is it just a matter of time? Is there any world in which you think he comes back?
That's actually really interesting. I haven't really put too much thought into it, mainly because my initial feeling is that this is probably over for Chauncey. This investigation, it's been going on for several years, apparently. It's a bipartisan thing. And it seems like, again, these are still just accusations, but I feel like it seems like they might have a pretty good case, in which case my feeling is that, yeah, this stuff is probably mostly true. And that this is probably the end of Chauncey's time in the NBA at any capacity. So that's that's like, I've gone there. I haven't really thought about that aspect. Okay, let's say he doesn't get banned. Is there a world where the Blazers bring him back? I would say it's probably unlikely. Like, if I had to give it a percentage, it's definitely less than 50%. Because the Blazers right now, like, this is a really good time for a coach to help the Blazers really take the next step. And like, they're already on the upswing. I actually just wrote about them today. I posted it this morning on Third Apron about I reviewed the extensions and what can come next. I don't think we touched on the Blazers as a potential sneaky top 6 team, and it's only been 2 games. They were really competitive in that Wolves game. They blew out the Warriors, though they were on the second night of a back-to-back. Look, the bar for the Blazers, it's not that high for them. Like, if Tiago Splitter can lead the Blazers to at least the play-in tournament, I want to say that bar might be high enough for them to just stick with him long term in the event that Chauncey could come back. Because at that point, do they really want to rock the boat, rock the chemistry? It'll take time to see how Splitter does things differently. But if it's pretty successful and the players respond well to him, then that might be enough. So I do think at this point it is probably closer to Udoka's situation. I'd be surprised if Billups is back as the Blazers head coach.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at too. And just the other thing is that, I mean, it must be a little frustrating for Portland, and I imagine they're watching the legal proceedings closely here. They did just extend Chauncey last offseason, I think it was during the season actually, where there had been a lot of rumblings that like last year was kind of make or break, and they ended the season pretty well, and there was some optimism. He also isn't Ime Udoka, frankly, in that it was obvious right away. Maybe not right away, because he started out like 500 the first 40 games. But by the end of that first year, it was so obvious that Ime Udoka was a great coach. And like, it took some real gumption from the Celtics to act the way that they did. They could have potentially swept that under the rug and hoped for the best. They didn't. Chauncey has not been that successful, has not inspired that same level of optimism where like, you might have wanted to change coaches anyway. I guess the extension might have bought him some time. I don't think that Chauncey is like such a great coach that you want to keep him through like all of the reputational damage and God knows what the legal proceedings are going to drag up. I don't know that there's that much more to say about Chauncey. What I really want to bring up with you is the Terry Rozier trade.
Hold on, I got one more thing, is that I want to add on to what you're saying about the Udoka comparison, where for the Celtics, Udoka on his first year led the Celtics to the finals, and he was clearly going to get another job. And it was just a matter of when, I guess, was like appropriate for that to start happening. So in the NBA, coaches cannot double dip contracts. So for the Celtics, once they found a taker for Udoka, it's just much easier for them to no longer have him. Because that's the other aspect, is that if Chauncey isn't banned, then if the Blazers do decide to fire him, maybe like there could be some there could be a grievance file. There could be that type of thing coming from Chauncey and his camp. I don't think he's going to have the type of interest as Udoka did going forward.
Well,
So that might be a little
again,
bit of a challenge for the Blazers in the event he is eligible to return.
And I don't know what the contract says where like if he's convicted, does that void the deal? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I would imagine there is language in that contract that like covers this sort of thing, but that's something we're gonna have to see play out over time. The thing that I actually do really want to talk to you about on a more theoretical basis, the initial investigation into Terry Rozier happens after a game in 2023. The Heat trade for Rozier in 2024 after that game has happened. Now, the NBA, I think, has disputed the notion that, like, they kept Rozier out of games at the end of the season. There was a foot injury. I guess my question here, and we don't know the truth. I think there have been some conflicting notions, reports. Did the Heat know about the allegations into or the discrepancy in some of the data from the sports books about Rozier before they traded for him? And I can't say factually whether they did or not. That's not what we're here to talk about. I think the interesting question here is, in this world now where this data does exist, do you think teams have a right to know if a player is being investigated for something like this before they trade for them? Because to me, it seems like a matter of liability, much in the way that an injury would, right? Like when a player is hurt, when he's traded, he takes a physical, and the team that's trading him is obligated to turn over any relevant medical information because a player's medical history might impede his ability to fulfill his contract. I think a potential gambling investigation now, frankly, raises similar issues where there's a chance a player might get pulled off of the court because of an investigation like this. Does a team have the right to know if that's the case? Do the Heat have any recourse here? Like, is there a world in which they could argue, like, hey, this was kept from us. We gave up a first round pick thinking we had a player who had no legal issues. We should get that pick back or something. I don't think that's actually going to happen. It's much like the Lakers and Mark Williams, where like practically it would just be impossible to like force a trade through or to untangle all of those webs. But on the other side of this, I think the NBA Players Association would argue that letting every team or any team know when a player is being investigated kind of unnecessarily sullies his name, attaches risk to him that might affect his ability to get paid in the future, even if he's eventually cleared. Because we saw this with Terry Rozier, there is a difference between the NBA investigation not finding wrongdoing and like legal exoneration, because frankly, the DOJ and the FBI have more resources to get to the truth of these matters than the NBA does. So I think the Players Association would say, hey, we can't let the entire league know when there's even a whiff of this on a player, because that could unfairly affect the earning potential of an innocent man, frankly. So I'm curious where you fall on this. Do you think teams should know the moment any player, even one who's not on their team, is being investigated? I think I fall in the camp that yes, teams should know. I think it's not different to injuries. I think it's something that if it could affect their ability to fulfill what's in their contract, teams trading for a player have a right to know and decide for themselves. Where do you fall on this?
I lean towards probably yes. And in the NBA's defense, this is still pretty newish territory, what they're going through. I'm sure that was a pretty, if true that they did not disclose anything, like not even just a little bit, hey, we're investigating Rozier. We're not sure if it's true. Maybe they did tell them, but kind of give the Heat confidence that no, this probably isn't going to amount to anything, but just so you know, there was an investigation, was pulled out, blah, blah, blah. Then I think at the least they should do that. But you do bring up a good point where, could be wrong, could be nothing. And yeah, that could hurt Terry Rozier's career going forward if he didn't do any of this stuff. So I think there needs to be some type of transparency a little bit, because like there's a possibility that the Heat may have even done this. Like maybe the Heat did know about this a little bit and they went ahead and did the trade anyways, which would be hilariously embarrassing for many reasons. And like, if that's the case, they definitely want to get ahead of that. At least put it out there that no, they weren't informed at all. Maybe they were informed a little bit. Maybe they just the NBA didn't have enough information to fully give them enough information to make it seem like it was going to be bigger than it is. I don't know. I will say though, most likely Rozier probably doesn't get voided this season. I think just like with the Kawhi situation, it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take, like, even if the feds convict them, maybe the NBA still, is there a possibility the NBA might like still not want to punish him if they feel like it's not enough? I don't know. Like, I don't think I'm making sense here, but I don't think that there's going to be anything fast enough before the season ends. I think they're going to want to see the whole process out. So I don't think the Heat are going to be able to void his contract this season. Maybe in the way that there is a push for the Heat to hopefully get their pick back. Maybe there's something that they could do to like maybe get some kind of tax variance for Rozier's contract if they can't waive him. Because if they were to cut him right now, his contract's not fully guaranteed. They would save like a little over $1 million. But maybe there's something that could be done where, hey, we can't play this guy. Can we at least get like, I don't know, $5 million in tax credits so we can be a little more flexible with our trades this season? That would be something that's not really in the CBA. It's not.
Well, I was going to say, could you potentially argue that he would fall under a disabled player exception? He's not disabled physically, but like, could you argue that an investigation is similar? I don't think so, but I'm just bringing up the idea.
No, I think it's there. It could be. It's a really outside the box type of thing that we're both heading for. Where we've never seen a team get a draft pick back for something that happened off the court, and let alone like this is definitely more doable if they could get some type of tax credit. It's just something that I'm guessing both the players and the owners need to kind of hash out. So maybe there's something that the Heat could do to get like just something out of this, because I would agree. Like it is surprising to me that there's a possibility that the NBA absolutely did not disclose to the Heat at all what was going on. My feeling is maybe there just wasn't enough information for the Heat to make the fullest calculated decision at the time. Like maybe the NBA did tell them a little something and but maybe it just wasn't enough, because like to your point, they can't go fully all in with the details at the risk of potentially slandering Rozier for something they're not 100% sure of.
Yeah, and then my last question would be, can they trade him while he's on administrative leave? Because if nothing else, he is a big cap number on an expiring deal. If the Heat wanted to make a win now trade of some sort, having that contract available would matter. And like we've seen this before where I think it was Josh McRoberts, some play I think that might not be right. Some
Eric
white big man, I think. No, I'm thinking of a white big man. Like said something super offensive that like kind of was going to end his career, but he was traded and waived.
Shoot.
You know what I'm talking about,
yeah,
right?
The Blazer.
Oh, Myers Leonard. Thank you. I apologize, Josh McRoberts. I was fixing up my white big man. But Myers Leonard got traded after that controversy. And like for a second, people were like, why would you trade for him? And he just got waived right away because he got traded as a cap figure. And I wonder if the Heat might want to trade Terry Rozier as a cap figure in some effort to improve this season. It's too early to say if that's going to make sense for them. But like, can you trade a player who's on administrative leave? I feel like the NBA almost has to say the answer is yes, because like there is the notion that like the Heat were somewhat potentially wronged by trading for Rozier without knowing this investigation took place. I feel like it's a bare minimum. They should be free to trade the cap number, probably with the understanding that the acquiring team would waive him right afterward.
I think the NBA would actually say no. because I've
Really?
thought about this for months when the Rozier stuff really started to simmer out a couple months ago. I thought about the possibility, well, if Rozier actually does get convicted slash does, at least in the NBA's investigation, is proven to have done this, then wouldn't then that makes him voidable. But wouldn't a team want to, in anticipation of that, potentially trade for Rozier so they could void him later? Because then all of a sudden, with this stuff going on right now, if Terry Rozier can be traded, he's kind of theoretically a positive asset at this point. If another team can just wipe his cap hit off the book, if that's the point, I think the NBA is much more likely to work with the Heat a little bit and give them some type of tax credits towards this season than have Rozier just be this all of a sudden positive value asset. If Rozier can be voided by any team right now, I'm sure he's going to go for like several seconds at the very least. So I don't know how the NBA would like that. I would get the feeling that with this absence that they put him on, this leave, that they put him on, he probably can't get traded.
Okay, but what I'm suggesting is we get to February and we still haven't reached a point in the legal process where the contract can be voided. And he's on an expiring deal. So, like, if you find out on March 18th that you can void him, is that really that valuable? Like, you've still paid out most of the contract. I kind of think it isn't, right? It's not like you're doing this in the offseason where you're like, we're trading for him and then we're going to void him and we're just going to get an extra $26 million in cap space. I think it's a little bit different if it's just what we think it's going to be, which is there's just not going to be resolution before the contract expires in 6 months or whatever it is, something like that. So I don't know. I'm inclined to believe they'd be allowed to trade him, but I also don't know if they're going to want to. We've spent enough time on this gambling scandal. We're not lawyers. Let's talk about basketball here.
All right.
My first one. Last year, I remember when the Cavs got out to that very, very hot start. And a lot of people were kind of wondering what's so different about their offense? Why are they so much better? And the initial thought whenever a new coach comes in and puts in like a more creative, more movement heavy scheme, like, oh, the ball's just flying around the court and they're moving so much and all of that, and it's just so much better. I remember looking up the numbers on the Cavs last year and being fairly surprised to find they were actually near the bottom of the league in passes. They were not a team that was actually moving the ball that much. What they were doing was they were so intentional about the way that they moved and the sort of advantages they were trying to create with all of their ball handlers that it was so much of it was one possession where it was like ball handler drive, kick to open shooter, defense collapses there, kick one more time. It's like 1 or 2 pass possession that always leads to an open shot. And that was sort of the difference that took the Cavs from this 48-win team to a 64-win team. I bring this up because I think something sort of similar is happening to the Knicks, where Tom Thibodeau is the coach last year, and Tibbs is known for like the vanilla offenses where there's not much movement and the point guard just pounds the rock over and over and over again, all that. And Mike Brown comes in, and it's this breath of fresh air. You look at the tracking data, and you see that the Knicks aren't really passing the ball that much more than they were in the past. I looked it up through 2 games. They were at 291 passes a game. Last year, they were at 281. It's similar. It's not like that much more, but it's an improvement. It's not like they're suddenly the Warriors. You look at the tracking data on movement, like how fast are they moving? How much distance are they covering? Incomplete, flawed data, fine. Again, it's not that different than what it was last year. But you watch it with your eyes, and you just see how much more intentional they are with their movement. Jalen Brunson especially. Jalen Brunson is like not just jogging through his Iverson cuts waiting to get the ball. Jalen Brunson is like part of the off-ball offense now. Mikal Bridges looks so empowered. OG Anunoby is a much bigger part of this than he was 2 years ago when he got there. He was a very good start offensively last year. Didn't quite maintain it over the course of the full year. Mike Brown has made this offense so much more intentional about the sort of things that they're attacking, and he's kept everybody involved in a way that hasn't demanded that they play like the Warriors, where the ball is flinging around the court constantly. The whole thing is coming together really, really beautifully so far. They're 2-0 as we record this podcast. They're playing the Heat as we record. I think they were winning last time I checked. I think something very, very interesting is happening here with the Knicks, where I could see them now being the East team that feasts on that easy schedule and has a much more stable and consistent offense that gets up into that 60-win range. Like right now, based on what I've seen, the Knicks are my pick to be the number one seed, not the Cavaliers. So what have your takeaways been from the Knicks so far this season? And then keeping in mind, I haven't seen Mitchell Robinson yet. Josh Hart is dinged. I think he had 3 points and 14 assists the other day, which is just, or 14 rebounds rather, which is just so very Josh Hart. What have your takeaways been from the Knicks so far?
Yeah, I did notice that stat line, like 1 for 7, I think, but like 14 rebounds. Like, because last year Josh Hart was, like in my mind, getting borderline all-star consideration, and this is just like classic Josh Hart stat line. No, I'm with you. I was very high on the Knicks, and that's really before considering the possibility of the offensive system really being rehauled. Because worst case, they could still fall back to more Brunson ball, Cat Brunson pick and roll. And I think that would still be enough to get 60 plus wins in this Eastern Conference. So the fact that I've been watching the Knicks the most so far. I watched both the Celtics and the Sixers game, watched a good amount. And I noticed there's really not as much, the ball, Brunson's not doing quite as much so far. So it does look a little different so far. And for me, that's been very inspiring. And I'm sure it's going to get better as the season goes on. And that's going to be really important towards the mileage on these guys. If they don't have, especially Brunson, if they don't have to make them, bail them out every single time. This will be huge to get everyone else a little more involved. And so far, one of the other issues that, again, it's still pretty early, but one of the bigger issues from last year was their lack of a bench. They had a really good bench the year before, but they had to compromise on that as they traded a lot of it to bring in Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns. And brought
Anunoby
in Towns
really too, because that was 2 for 1 in that deal. Yeah.
But especially those two, like the Cat trade, that was so late in the offseason that all the potential minimum guys that could have lined up for them, they're already gone. So this offseason was about bringing in bench players. So far, so good for as far as trying to get as many regular season wins. We'll see how these guys hold up in the playoffs, but so far, I think I like what I've seen from all the main guys in the rotation. Like Miles McBride's kind of like the 7 starter, so to speak. But as far as the newcomers, Yabusele, seems like he's been all right. Even Shamet so far seems like they should have a pretty good enough bench as well to help with the load throughout this marathon of a season.
Okay, the guy on the bench that I really want to highlight so far, and I'm not surprised at all. When the Knicks signed Isaiah Hartenstein a few years ago, I remember texting all of my Knicks fan friends because, they're big Knicks fans and they watch all the Knicks games. They're not plugged in nationally in the way that we have to watch all 30 teams. I remember texting all of them being like, you're going to love Hartenstein. He's going to be your favorite player on the team within a month. And that's how it more or less turned out. And everyone, of course, I was about to say Hartenstein when he left. They were heartbroken when he left. Yabusele kind of followed a similar timeline where the moment they signed him, I text all my Knicks fans, you're going to love Yabusele. And he immediately comes in and exactly what the Garden loves. So much energy. He's going to make a lot of the end of run. He's going to make a lot of threes that lead the other coach to calling a timeout. That's what Yabusele does. It's not just that he's a 38% shooter. It's that he's the sort of guy who's going to make the third three in 100 seconds that the crowd is roaring over. He just brings this energy off the bench that I think is very, very infectious. He and Huck Porty has just been a ball of energy so far. I think having those two guys is going to go so far in giving you some optionality in how you play defense in your front court, of course, but also keeping Mitchell Robinson fresh. The name of the game here is Mitchell Robinson has to be fresh when the playoffs get here. If we get to the playoffs and Mitchell Robinson is 60%, the championship window is closed. if they get to the playoffs and he's 90%, like he was against Boston against Indiana last year, championship window's open. You've got a chance. Having Yabusele and Hukporti in the regular season, I think is going to go a long way for them. I have been pretty encouraged by Tyler Kolek so far. I know that's a small sample thing. And I'm just really glad to see the Knicks using all of these guys, experimenting, using different kinds of lineups. I still want to see more of Deuce with the 4 other core starters. I think that's something where last year it was like 25 possessions over the full year. Get up to 250 this year, just see how it looks. So in certain matchups in the playoffs, you have that in your disposal. So I'm very, very encouraged by the Knicks so far. What is your next observation, team you want to talk about, etc.?
I just quickly want to add on. I'm with you on Yabusele. As soon as they got him, I thought that was the best potential taxpayer MLE signing they could have possibly gone for. Undersized forward who can knock down corner threes, big connector, very strong for his size. Sounds like somebody that they brought in last year to be their 15th man, although he was already way past his expiration date. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh, PJ Tucker. Yeah.
Like same
Well,
for
it was
me.
just such a Tibbs signing, by the way.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Tibbs wants the guy who did it 5 years ago. Now under Mike Brown, they're focusing more on the guys who can do it 5 years from now.
So, and so the optionality you could bring to their front court, because the last year center without Mitchell Robinson, getting those backup minutes, they had Precious, they let him go this year. That was a bit of a challenge to navigate. Now this year, assuming Mitch is finally going to be healthy, so far that hasn't exactly been the case. We'll see what's going on there. Hopefully he comes back immediately. But you got him. You're going to put Cat at the 4, and yeah, you got Hukporti. You got Trey Jemison to be like they could be solid third, fourth stringers. But then you got Yabusele could also be a backup 5. Like he could do, like he'll be able to play. I think he should be able to play with both Cat and Mitch if they want to stay a little bigger. So I really like the optionality he could bring, and I'm sure they're going to figure out more ways to get him involved. My next thing, I think we should talk about the team that has been drawing the most ire throughout the entire year, not just this season, and it's the Mavericks, obviously. Yeah, just 2025, not... Hopefully it's one of those things where as soon as the year turns over, things actually start to stabilize a little bit for Mavs fans. But like I said last week, I didn't expect them to be a playoff contender. I thought they'd be fighting for a playing team, and it's all about the playmaking. Like that's just something that it's a pretty simple, it's kind of reductive the way I've been saying it, but it's all about that. And I thought that when they brought in D'Angelo Russell, I knew that wasn't going to work out. Like I thought that's going to be more something maybe by game 10 to 15. They decide, okay, let's try out Brandon Williams. And then all cards on the table. Okay, we're going to put Cooper Flag at the 1. They went to that immediately. So they have already kind of in a way exhausted their guard options. Jason Kidd had maybe the quote of the entire of all 25 when he said, I'm just paraphrasing. It was just something like the Mavs lack playmaking. It was something like that. And that is just as close to criticizing Nico Harrison as Jason Kidd could probably do. And that's just you're just saying something that's objectively true. To go on with that, also, I've got a couple more points, but I'll just kick it off to you. Do you think there's going to be do you think there's any silver lining? Do you think that they're going to stabilize things? A lot of talent on the roster. Can it actually convert into winning a lot of regular season games?
I want to take you from one Nico to another as I introduce a new segment on this show I call Machiavelli Corner. Here's my theory. I think Jason Kidd I don't actually think this. I'm just saying if you were thinking this way, you would do the things that Jason Kidd has done. Jason Kidd just got extended. He's going to be set in Dallas for the foreseeable future. Cooper Flag playing point guard makes no sense in the present. And that is not at all a criticism That is not at all a criticism on Cooper Flag. He did this with Giannis too, where he played him at point guard early as a way to like show him the game from a different angle that paid major dividends down the line. But if you look at even the best playmakers in the NBA, as rookies, they led bad offenses. Luka's offense is a rookie ranked 20th. LeBron's ranked 18th. Like, if you're trying to win games in the present, you're not starting Cooper Flag a point guard. You're doing that for the future. Jason Kidd can feel relatively confident after that extension that he'll be around for the future. Can we say that about Nico Harrison? Not quite sure. I wonder if Machiavelli Kid is sitting there thinking, let me turn up the pressure on Nico, get him out of here after a bad year, and then my franchise player, Cooper Flag, is in a much better position in the future, and we can trade the older guys and like do this slowly, do it properly. I'm not saying that's what's happening. I'm just saying that's how it feels to me watching it. Because the fans are already chanting fire Nico, as they should. They should have fired him. The moment he proposed the idea of trading Luka, they should have fired him. And if they weren't going to do that, they should have fired him a week after the trade, just under the logic that it was untenable in that fan base to have the entire city hate you. And if you weren't going to do it a week after, then do it after the season. Like, there were so many moments. I still think it should happen. This makes no sense to me, right? And I even want to go past the offense, which has been a disaster and is ranked last in the NBA so far. Admittedly, tiny sample, but the whole defense wins championship thing, we've talked about this either on the show or off air. There is a difference between size and defense that I don't think Nico Harrison quite understands, which is ironic considering they made the finals 2 years ago, not just with Luka. You know who was critical to that team was Derrick Jones Jr. guarding Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, guarding Anthony Edwards for a lot of that series. It's really important to have point of attack perimeter guys who can guard, especially in the West, all of these star guards on other teams. And they don't have that now. They're a defense-first team that's really just a giant team. They don't have defensive-minded guards. I don't think that defense is going to be that good. I figured, hoped, whatever, that if you're going to play that big, you're going to be great on the glass. And they haven't felt overwhelming on the glass so far. I kind of just don't know what this team's calling card is right now. I don't know, like, what you look at and say, this is the way that we're going to win games. Anthony Davis, not in shape. The clock is very, very loudly ticking towards the Anthony Davis is no longer worth the massive trade haul you could have gotten from him over the summer. We've talked about this too. I have less than zero interest in giving Anthony Davis the extension that he's going to want after the season. If you're asking me to like give him an extension deep into his 30s at a max or close to max number, I have no interest in doing that. But like trading him is their path to potentially building a proper future around Flag. They're not going to do it as long as Nico's there. So like if I were Jason Kidd, I'd be acting in the best interests of making Nico look bad, getting him out of there, and then we can do this properly. I see so little reason for optimism. And again, none of this is on Flag, to be clear. He's being asked to do what very few rookies can do, and he's failed thus far because he's not being put in a position to succeed. I think Cooper Flag is going to be great. I don't think the Mavericks are doing him any favors with the way that they're acting right now. And I think we're headed for, if not a train wreck, because I think there are a couple other West teams in that same range in the standings that are also kind of in danger of falling off the rails. So I don't want to sit here and say, oh, they're going to be in the lottery again, but like, not contending for anything this year. If they make the play-in, like, okay, cool, you've stolen the number 8 seed, good for you. Your reward is getting swept by the Thunder. I don't know what that really accomplishes for anybody. So they're a total mess. I've seen nothing so far this year to change my preseason opinions on them. They're just, It's a mess and it's a disappointment all around.
The only pushback I would have to your Machiavellian corner theory is I don't think Kidd wants to rebuild. I think he wants to compete at the highest level. So now there could, at the same time, the only way this would benefit him is if he has some kind of ambitions to get into the front office. That's
has he done that before? Tell me, Yossi, has he had those ambitions before? Do you not remember how it ended in Brooklyn? He tried to launch a coup to take Billy King's job, and it failed.
He did?
That's why he left to the Bucks.
I don't know that. Wow.
Go read up on it.
All right, so no, I'll lend some credence to your theory if that's the goal. If he's trying to just get like a cushy executive job. But I think like pretty early on, like Nico set the expectation so high when he made the trade. He said defense wins championship. He thinks his team is going to be good enough to win a championship. So if we're going to lower the expectations a little bit, what can still constitute a successful season? I suppose being a top 6 team in this loaded West. I just think anything less than that is just an outright disaster, because I think they had a 2-year window, including last year before Kyrie got hurt. And I just don't see how they're gonna. I don't see how they're gonna stay afloat. I don't see how they're gonna be able to stay in that range that they're probably hoping for. So at the very least, do you want to lower expectations a little bit organizationally? I don't think that's really possible. And I'm sure is some low-hanging fruit they could address. One other thing that we just completely glossed over so far, it's early, but Klay Thompson starts the year. At this point, you need to just hit your shots. He's not doing that right now. If this continues, seems like it's only a matter of time before Christie would take his minutes. But like, that's not really going to fix the offense fundamentally. I'm sure they're going to do.
Klay also can only really defend bigger forwards now. Like, you're starting him at shooting guard, but he's really defensively a power forward. So again, you've got no speed. You've got no ability to besides Flag, and even he's like, that's not the optimal use of him to have him chasing point guards. Like, if you're going to start Flag at point guard, start Max Christie and let him guard point guards.
By the way, right now they're playing the Raptors, which stylistically somewhat closer of a match to some of the teams, like at least that they played recently. Like, they lost to the Spurs, which, okay, it had Wemby, the Wizards, but much younger athletic team. This Raptors team also kind of trying to be as big as them, but let's see, if they lose this game, and what like I kind of anticipate would be, so far it's like a slower game than pace wise, then I would guess that, I don't really see how they're going to, if they can be like a couple mediocre teams, then it just seems like it's going to be over. But I'm sure they're going to make some type of trade to address guard. Well, the question is, are they going to really wait till January, or do they want to do something a little more urgently? Like, they can't, assuming they don't trade any of their top highest paid guys, they could potentially move somebody like Jaden Hardy. Like, he's trade eligible right now, $6 million. Caleb Martin, like, they're so deep at the wing that they can't. I saw he didn't really play the first game. I don't know if he played the second one, but in a way, when they're fully healthy, he's effectively out of the rotation. Can you at least do something with these guys right now and address point guard immediately? Because that's all I really feel like they could do right now with their hard cap situation. They can't go over by this much.
To at the end of the show, we're gonna do a Who Says No segment at the end. I think I have a name that I would consider for them.
I do too.
We might have the same name.
Oh,
I think
no. We probably don't. He does not fit. Okay. It's just more
He fits the Nico Harrison defense wins championship ideology. Not like, he's not going to lift the offense, but he's point guard size and he plays defense. But
yeah,
anyway,
my guy does not fit it. It just like trying to connect dots of certain trades. By the way, if we guys stick around to the very end, we're going to do a Who Says No. We're each going to give each other a trade and argue who says no. All right, so let's move on. Who do you want to discuss next?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Victor Wembanyama is just God now, I guess. Like, maybe the monks did it. Maybe he ascended past his mortal coil and has ascended to godhood. I don't know what to say. That game against Dallas, and against Dallas specifically, I've never seen some of the things that I saw out there. And like, if this is who he is at 21, who's he going to be at 27? Like, we're in territory now where we kind of just have to say, if he stays healthy and if the Spurs manage the roster around him correctly, I think he's going to be the greatest basketball player we ever see. Like, I think he's like, I'm more excited about him than I was about LeBron at this point. Now, I was 13 years old when LeBron was at this point, so take that with a grain of salt. I am just overwhelmed by how good he is. Like, where do we even start? He's the best defensive player on the planet by a mile. He's totally unstoppable offensively. He dribbles like he's 6'5", but he's 7'5". He's such a good passer that gets like really overlooked because it's like his eighth best skill. This is something that I used to say about LeBron a lot, by the way. LeBron was the best short roll passer in the entire NBA. We just never talked about it because LeBron was so good with the ball in his hands and pick and roll that we never talk about the things that he could do as a screener. It's like LeBron, yeah, of course LeBron's great at it. LeBron's great at everything. That's where I'm at with Wemby as a playmaker now, where like he's like gonna be an A+ passer with time. It's just we don't talk about that at all because there's so many other more visible, scarier things that he does. I think he could win MVP this year. Like we might be here now. He is the best player that I have watched so far this season, bar none. And like Jokic is off to a slow start offensively, fine. SGA has mostly been SGA, but like SGA is a version of a basketball player that I've seen before. Like he is a version of a high scoring guard. He does have his own individual quirks, obviously, but like Wemby is, I mean, SGA isn't like fundamentally changing basketball in a way that like Wemby is something that I've never seen before. In my time watching basketball, there have been 5 players that I think have like fundamentally challenged or defined what I considered possible on a court. Those players are Shaquille O'Neal, LeBron James, Stephen Curry, Nikola Jokic, and now Victor Wembanyama. Like he is the next one. He is changing our perception of what a human being can do on a basketball court. I I think we're going to leave this season thinking he's the best player in the world.
I'll give you an analogy, and maybe some of you listening at home could relate. When I was between like 10 to 13 years old, I had an adjustable basketball hoop. I could put it as high as 10 feet or something as low as like, I don't know, 5 something. Uh, I'm 5'7", by the way. So back then I'm probably like, I don't know, 5 to 5'2". And I would, put it as low as possible. And I'm sure many of you just do as many dunks as you can, even as easy as it is. And I would imagine, what if I'm like a slightly taller Dirk / Rasheed Wallace who can also knock down threes at that ease because of how low the hoop is. And Victor Wembanyama is the personification of that in professional basketball, where he's just, yeah, he's God now. He's doing all these things that I could only imagine. I could only pretend to do on a little like smaller adjustable hoop. So last week we discussed, which teams can we see going all in at the end of the season. And I touched on, I think the Spurs, if everything really breaks early with Wemby, there could be a player trying to position himself to go there as soon as the trade deadline, like Fox did last year. If so, I think the next question is, if you're the Spurs, do you go ahead and push the button now into overdrive and bring in someone, try to compete for not just a playoff spot at this point, but potentially a top 3 seed and try to win a playoff round or two? Do you push that, and like what type of player at a minimum would you seek?
So I think the thing that's going to be the story for the Spurs from a transaction standpoint, as long as they have these 3 guards, there are going to be fake trades happening that take that 3 to 2. If I were them, and like I nothing against any of the guards, like you'd be happy with any of them. They just have 3 when they really only need to have 2. And if you would reverse the timeline, if they'd gotten Harper before they made the Fox trade, they just wouldn't have made the Fox trade. That's just the reality. What I've been wondering so far this season, could you trade Fox somewhere just for the assets to then flip for Lauri Markkanen, where then you're still in, you're still trying to win. You're balancing, you're saying instead of having 3 guards, we're instead going to have 2 of them, the younger ones that have a longer runway, and we're going to instead take the older, more expensive one and turn him into an older, more expensive forward who plays a different position, is bigger, and also is a great shooter and an easier fit, especially when Castle obviously is not a shooter yet. Carter Bryant, who I think is going to be very important for them defensively with time, not a shooter yet. If you have 2 bigs in Wemby and Lowry who can shoot, that's what makes the most sense to me. from a salary standpoint, I don't think you'd want to have both Fox and Markkanen. And I also just think they don't want to go all in with all of their own assets, right? Like they probably want to save the 2031 Kings pick. They probably want to save some of those other stuff assets that they've gotten from other teams and trades, because I think they're going to be very conscious of when Wemby is 26, 27, 28, we still want to have high draft picks coming in that we can use to like build the next version of his great team. So my thought would be, instead of like going all in and trading another 4 or 5 picks, what you should be thinking is, let's trade Fox for something that makes more sense for us now. And like, are Castle and Harper ready yet? Probably not. Will they be ready in a few years? I think so. And when that time comes, I want a roster around those 3 guys that's more balanced, that has more shooting, that is like, that just makes a little bit more sense than the team that they have now. Victor might be so good that you could just start all 3 guards and it would work. Is it optimal? I personally don't think so. Fox is not a great shooter. Castle to this point is just not a shooter. We'll see if that changes. Sometimes it does, more often it doesn't. Harper is like a fine shooter. It's not the best part of his game. He's much more exciting getting to the basket. I just want that roster to be balanced. I think from a talent perspective, they're already where they need to be, and I would be holding on to my future draft capital in the name of sustainability. It's just going to be about balance, and to me, that it makes it obvious that Fox is the guy they should be moving, unless they decide it's Castle. Harper to me is untouchable. Like,
No,
I'm sorry for nothing. Harper isn't going anywhere.
I'm with you, and I think if we gave the Spurs true serum about how they feel about the Fox situation after getting Harper, I think long term they probably would admit that now that things have changed, that they probably don't view Fox as like, okay, maybe I won't go that far, but that they probably don't want to be quite as attached to Fox as they are right now, if that's fair to say.
Can we just let me stop you for a second? There's something I think that listeners should probably have conscious in the back of their mind. This is not a purely basketball question, to be clear. De'Aaron Fox is represented by Rich Paul. Rich Paul and Clutch Sports are the most powerful agency in basketball right now. I know people like don't like to think about how that affects roster building, and you like to think that teams are built purely from the perspective of like, oh, we just go get the best player. It's not that simple. It's complicated and it's messy, and there are real relationships involved. And when Rich Paul does you this favor and helps you get this star that you thought you were going to need, and it turns out that you don't need anymore, it makes it very difficult to screw over their client and just say like, yeah, Fox, we don't need him anymore. He's garbage.
Yeah,
and
that's exactly.
You have to take care of him. You have to take care of Clutch, because if you don't, they're going to steer other players away from you, and that's going to create problems, especially later when you need their help on minimum guys, on mid-level guys, when you don't have the same resources. So that's why this situation is so complicated.
No, and that's exactly what I was going to next, is that it's going to have to take him wanting a different situation, I think, for the Spurs to just move on from him so quickly. And look, like, they're going to try him out. They're going to bring him in. They're going to see what kind of lineup combinations they could do. Like, just alone from the potential playing all 3 guards, like right now, like there's a possibility that, I'm not saying Fox will be like, lineups with Fox could be like negative or anything like that. But like what you would think, like, for a casual fan, that if you put in Fox right now on top of what they've got going on right now, they should be a much stronger team. There's a possibility that he doesn't really raise their ceiling much at all in whatever lineup combinations they might put together, which then brings these questions more to the front. They just gave him a max contract where he's going to be making over $50 million a year, roughly 30% of the cap. Like, if he's not really raising your ceiling to the level of a max player making that much should, then yeah, that makes it a little more complicated for the long term. So that just it feels like it could get. I don't know. I'm not saying like I am anticipating things to get a little complicated, but there is a possibility that it's not working as not great. Like, I think they're gonna be good no matter what. but like is not really getting them at the level they want. But that might be something more so towards like the playoffs, because in the playoffs, I think I would trust De'Aaron Fox a lot more than the rookies right now. Like I think they could, if Wemby's healthy all year, like you probably don't even need Fox in the regular season. But the argument is then, okay, then Fox probably does raise your ceiling in the playoffs, because you could probably trust him a lot more than Castle and Harper at this point in the playoffs. Fox has one playoff, not a lot of playoff experience, but he's got something. So I think most likely, that was like a big Fox tangent. I didn't mean to go there, but if the Spurs do make an all-in move, it's probably going to be involving like a combination of Vassell / Barnes, Keldon Johnson, which can get a lot of the way there. I really like, if it is a max player, I really like that you brought up Larry Markkinen, because that's who I really want to see on the Spurs if they go after somebody that they could realistically get. Because when the lottery happened, Spurs jumped to 2. Immediately, we all thought Giannis, that the Spurs now have the best package for Giannis if they're willing to trade the number 2 pick and some extra picks. Now, Lowry isn't Giannis, but when seeing a little bit of what Wemby and Luke Cornett are able to do together, I'm just more interested in seeing what Wemby could do if they bring in another super skilled big, someone like Lowry, who he could definitely he's got the physicality in the paint, not quite like Giannis, can't get to the paint like him, but with playing with someone like Wemby can really open things up. They do need more size, I think, there. So I'd be more interested in like, okay, if you can't get Giannis, can you bring in someone like a Larry Markkinen? They could easily make that happen, but it's going to cost them probably all the remaining picks that they have.
Yeah, the other name I'd bring up is Jaylen Brown. We're not going to talk about the Celtics today, but I'm sure that's going to come up later. I think the idea of a big forward who can shoot is, I think, the archetype that makes the most sense there. I don't want to say we've talked about enough about the Spurs, because they're going to own the NBA for a decade, but we've talked enough about the Spurs for today. Who is your next team?
My next team. So we did the gambling, Mavs. Let's talk about Orlando. So I think they're going to put it together a little more. They're 1-2 as of now. As of when I checked last night, though, still 29th on offense. So I'm still like, so far, Orlando validating some of my concerns about them offensively. Just because they brought in Bane still doesn't change much about the way they're playing offensively. Paolo has been not quite to his level right now. So I think things are going to get better right now. And despite all this, I still kind of like I'm saying with the Spurs, playoffs versus regular season type of dynamic. I still trust the Magic more, as long like with the group they have for getting to the playoffs. I'm just worried though they're not going to be like a regular season juggernaut. So I think they're going to improve it, but early indications maybe they're not going to be like high above the bottom 10, which is the area they've been trying to break out of since Dwight left. What do you think? Am I overreacting to that?
I mean, I think it's a little bit too early. I think they're still trying to figure a lot of things out. I'm not writing them off or anything. The thing that really pops off the screen to me, the offense flows so much better when Franz Wagner has the ball than when Paolo Banchero has the ball. And like, I don't want to do this thing where I pit them against each other and say like, it should be Franz's team, not Paolo's team. But like, I do wonder how complicit Paolo is in the shooting struggles that they have, where like KCP is an above average shooter forever, and then he goes to Orlando and he can't make any shots. Desmond Bane, one of the best shooters in the NBA for years and years and years. So far, it's been a bit of a struggle in Orlando. I just wonder how hard it is on shooters when you have a guy like Paolo who's like trying to do so much of the on the dribble stuff, and it's not in a way that like bends defenses in the way that like a small quick guard getting to the rim would. It just feels like it grinds everything to a halt, and they're not really doing anything offensively to, like, for lack of a better term, like stay lubricated. Like everything is very clunky. Everything is like forced. I don't know, like something about it is just not clicking yet. It's 3 games. I'm not gonna panic about them until we get to like, I don't know, December, January. I just like the more I watch them, the more I'm just like, how Franz really is the guy that like makes this click into place a lot more. And I sort of wish a lot more of the offense ran through him. Whereas, so then Paolo could then be more of a play finisher than somebody who's being expected to create stuff. Because like, man, it's hard. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, you can't build a great offense around Paolo, but like, he's not making it easier on his teammates with the way that he dribbles and the sort of shots that he's like trying to take. And I've been very forgiving with him in the past because the spacing has been such a mess. It's going or it should be better this year. If it's not, I start to get a little bit freaked out.
Yeah, and another thing worth noting is the Jalen Suggs dependency. So he came back and after missing some of the preseason, and then but very limited minutes, and I think missed the third game of the season. And that game they had their worst performance. I don't think they even scored 100 last night. Who'd they play last night? I already forgot.
Was Atlanta last night or was
yes,
it? No,
I think. Oh no, Atlanta beat them the second night.
Last night, right? Chicago was
yeah.
last night.
Chicago,
Yes.
Maybe a team we should have discussed about sneaky top 6 playoff
Oh,
team.
I did. Remember?
Yeah. Yeah, no, just give Billy. I just think Billy Donovan's a really good coach. I don't think he gets. I think he's he's underrated at this point. Just give him enough space and give him a lot of shooters. They could still be a little better defensively, but you give him that could be a recipe for winning a ton of regular season games. But with the Magic, so yeah, they didn't have Suggs last night. Tyus Jones off to a really rough start. I feel like he had like an offer last night. I want to see what it was, but not encouraging right now. Where the other point guard that they wanted to bring in to potentially, like, this is a guy who was able to keep the Grizzlies afloat when John Morant missed a ton of games a couple of years ago. Like, this wasn't that long ago. He couldn't really help the Suns in that way. And now, so far, not great start with the Magic, where I'm going to keep an eye on that. If that doesn't improve, and maybe like they got Anthony Black, maybe Jace Richardson can emerge. They've got some potential other backup options where if that doesn't work out, that could end up being the way they get under the tax, because they're right over it right now. They're probably going to do something. So I'm just keeping an eye on that. Yeah, I'm just a little. I do feel like they're going to clean up a lot of things. They've got they still have some time. I still think, they'll probably break above the bottom 10 for the first time, but I'm not that confident it'll end up, they'll be like above average, which is what you're hoping for when you put this team together, trade all your picks for Bane, and raise expectations.
Yeah, I think the path to like a top, I don't know, like a top 2, top 3 seed was top 5 defense, top above average on offense. And I think the defense gets there because it always does. The offense is definitely going to be a work in progress. So for my next team, why don't we stay in this general area and go over to Memphis with the Grizzlies? I don't want to grade the Desmond Bane trade yet. I just kind of want to say they get 4 picks in that trade. 2 of them ultimately secure Cedric Coward for them. And my God, like, the Grizzlies do it again, where they find another guy in this mid to late lottery range who, at least so far, looks just incredible. Now, I don't know if the shooting is going to sustain because Coward was not a good shooter in the preseason. I think that was kind of one of the questions about him coming through the draft process was, where is the jump shot going to fall? His feel for the game and what he can do on the ball, I can't believe how advanced it is for a guy who was playing D3 a few years ago. He is like, if he's a 35% shooter from 3, he's going to be great because his defense is already very, very strong for a rookie. He can do stuff on the ball. Like, it's a little Mikal Bridges-y in that he does want, or he should have the ball a little bit, but he's much more aggressive and deliberate with the way he handles the ball, whereas Bridges like really likes to work and show off the bag. I can't think of like an exact comp for him, but he is like somebody can fill the 3-and-D role, but also bring a lot more on-ball verve than most of those guys can. And if you look at like the trade in a vacuum, you get Cedric Coward, and if he's a hit, not only do you get him, you quietly get Phoenix's pick this year, or maybe Washington's. It's going to be a pretty decent pick either way. So all of a sudden, you get two very potentially valuable assets on rookie deals. Whereas Memphis or Orlando, we'll see how they do with Desmond Bane. But as far as return on a trade of that size, that's really, really good. And John Morant looks a lot better. I don't know. Like, he has some vulnerabilities as a player that are always going to be issues. Never going to be a great shooter, never going to be a great defender. Durability, a question. He has a lot more pop this year. Like, he's faster. I think going back to an offense that actually runs some pick and roll, as opposed to the Noah LaRoche stuff last season, that I thought worked, but clearly pissed Ja off so much that it tempered with his, effectiveness. So I think the offense is making more sense for him. They haven't gotten their front court back, but like, it's very rare that, at least among us, we tend to be either all in or all out with how we want to build rosters. Either you have stars and you're trading for more guys, or you're trading your guys out and getting assets. The Grizzlies doing this kind of middle ground thing where they turn Bane into other assets, like, that could kind of work. And it's kind of funny that it took them this long, because how many times have they tried with this archetype? First it was Justice Winslow, then it was Zaire Williams, and it's like, you guys, you just keep missing. Like, if you just would have taken Trey Murphy, we wouldn't have to have these conversations. But they tried so hard on so many of these wings, and they finally seem to have got one with Coward, and they're just in a better organizational position than I think I gave them credit for. I wanted them to tear it down when they made the Bane trade, and like, the jury's still out on whether you should build around John Jaren. We'll see that over time. It's just been a very, very encouraging start for them.
First of all, great transition from Orlando to Memphis with that
I'm
link.
really mad too, because when you were talking about Dallas, I wanted to transition into skinny Luka, but I just like, you know what? We got to get to Wemby early. So I missed my chance early, and I'm glad I grabbed it there.
And just separate from the Bane trade, despite my doubts on the Magic, I still think there's a strong chance that trade could work out for them. But I like it a lot more for the Grizzlies the moment it happened. When the Grizzlies made that trade to trade up, it was aggressive. I was surprised that they were willing to give up a future first to move up. Maybe it was like 4 or 5 spots. It wasn't that much. So great deal, great return on the Blazers on that end. But this reminded me of the last time the Grizzlies made a big swing to move up in the draft. Didn't work out. They moved up like 5-6 spots, taking on a lot of bad
17
money.
to 10.
Yeah, to trade they took on a lot of bad money. I mean, not a lot. Like, Steven Adams was bad money for the Pelicans, but they also took on Eric Bledsoe. That wasn't helpful for the Grizzlies, and ended up trading the pick that was the better player in Trey Murphy to move up to get Zaire Williams. So with Cedric Coward, clearly, as far as like who they envision to be, who they want to be their starting like a 3, they have type. And so far, he's showing a lot more than Zaire has in his entire time in Memphis. So this was you talk about the trade, like, that's half the return basically from the Desmond Bane trade, that they bring in a 2025 first round pick and they trade a 2020, one of those picks in 2028 to get Cedric Coward. So he really needed to hit. And right there, like, the trade is, I'm not saying like they won the trade or he's going to be a better player than Desmond Bane. I'm not going to go there. But if, based on the early returns, if Cedric does develop into the type of player that the Grizzlies are projecting him to be, like, that alone makes it like pretty worth it for the Grizzlies. And that's before talking about that they still have 2 picks left on this trade, a 2030 Magic pick and that pick you mentioned from the Suns. The Grizzlies might have a top pick in this year's draft. Like, it hasn't hit people yet. Like, depending on what happens with the Suns, like, if let's say they're like 8th, last year they were like 9th or 10th. They were like 10th worst team in the NBA. Like, if they go a little worse, they got like 8th, like anything's possible. I don't think it's really at all hit people's minds that the Grizzlies could be looking at getting like if they could get some lottery luck and be in play for some of the top guys in next year's draft. So, like, just on the court, I don't anticipate the Grizzlies are going to go that far. The injuries, it just really concerning right now. As we speak, we get breaking news that they got a hardship exception. They're going to sign Charles Bassey to play some center. So I don't think I am anticipating they'll probably be playing range again, which could open up some deeper discussions that we kind of went into last time. But as far as this young core that they've got developing right now, I'm really excited for them going forward.
Yeah, I just there's still stuff to figure out, and like I don't know what the broader picture is going to look like in 2 years. But that's a smart front office, and if they think they can do this like middle ground where they're not actively tanking, but they're kind of taking a small step back, they'll have their own pick this year too. Like there's a world in which they pick 5th from the Suns and 11th with their own pick, and you think about how well that they've drafted, and it's like, damn, we could get this thing back on track very, very quickly. We're running a little bit long, so why don't we each do one more team, and then we'll get to the who says no.
All right, well,
pick one more.
Let's. I think this next one I could kind of make it a composite because I wanted to talk about a couple bad teams. At least were bad last year. What's going on? I can't edit the text now. Okay, and I guess we might as well just do 2 and 1. I wanted to talk about the Sixers and the Wizards. Just want to shout out the players that. God, this is a mess. That. VJ Edgecombe looking like I didn't really know much about VJ Edgecombe, which kind of went into when we did our selecting players to start a franchise with. I didn't really consider him. Like this is like this is kind of like what the Sixers were hoping to get. Like not the full extent, but a little bit from what the type of player they wanted from Paul George, an athletic wing. And I didn't even know if he was able to knock down 3. So far, he's knocking them down pretty early. He's a big reason why the Sixers are having success right now. Like, despite like in all this shakiness going on in the East, so far a lot of the teams that a lot of us have believed in, like the Magic, the Hawks, like so far not looking good on my pick on the Hawks. There's a huge void, a power void, so to speak, of who's going to be like the 3 or 4 seed. And so far, the Sixers are looking pretty good. The vibes seem pretty good. Tyrese Maxey looking back to his form that he previous from last season. Quentin Grimes, just shout him out. He like, not a great rough off season, gets to qualify, has to take the qualifying offer, doesn't get the contract he wants, now gets demoted. Like he went from being the first option on a pretty bad team, but really thriving in that role, to now coming off the bench and he is thriving in that role again. Like I think this, in a way, like despite the demotion, this is going to help his stock this summer, where he's a player. If you need him to scale up, he can do that. You need him to be the 5th option or be the 6th man. Like he'll be excellent in that as well. I'm excited for the Sixers. The Wizards, they finally have some players. They've been drafting a lot of players, just shooting, just taking their shot, just trying to get somebody. And Keyshawn George looking like a legit starter. Trey Johnson early on, I think he's been the most how do I say, like impactful rookie, I guess. Like this soon, starting their career for the Wizards. From anyone?
Most impactful.
No. For a Wizards draft pick from this regime, okay. I meant. I would say, like right off the jump, I don't think any of their other rookies from the past few drafts have really had this good of a start. So I just wanted to shout out like the Wizards. They have some players, at least for me, like I'm starting to look forward to. Like admittedly, I barely watched the Wizards last year, and it's just kind of hard to see like who's going to be what, unless like you really watched. And so far, just especially Keyshawn George, he's knocking down threes, getting to the paint with these, finishing. Defensive hustle plays, just he's so much fun to watch.
Yeah, I think I'm more than anything, I'm glad that the guys that are popping for the Wizards are offense-centric guys, because they have all of these big athletic projects like Sarr and Koulibaly that we like, but it's just so hard for them to get easy looks on offense, or at least it had been in the past, because like they just have nothing to create with. But George and Trey Johnson coming in immediately and just being these great scorers, that is going to open things up a lot more for these defense, more athletically inclined guys. I also just want to point out Chris Middleton looks pretty good, looks pretty healthy. Somebody you might factor into buyout season or the trade deadline in some way. Probably can't play in major minutes, but he's looked pretty good from what I've seen.
Buyout
Sixers are the more
season
interesting.
safely, yeah.
Yeah. Sixers are the more interesting of these teams. Joel Embiid was terrible in the opener. He was much, much better last night. And I found myself thinking last night, they've kind of found or coming into their version of like what the new normal is going to be, where you're not going to have Embiid for 36 minutes. It's never going to happen again. He's never going to play back-to-backs. You can never like fully build your team around him in the same way ever again. He's just not there physically. But you can kind of, with the players that they have, build sort of two different teams within the team where you can play one way that's a lot slower when you have Embiid out there. But then when he's not, you just put the guards out and you just say, run. We're going to be more athletic than other teams. We're going to shoot better than other teams. We're going to out-talent other teams, even if we don't have that same like size physicality advantage that we had with Embiid. And like being able to dictate pace and change pace so much over the course of a game and over the course of like a quarter, I think it's going to give teams whiplash a little bit. And it's going to be something that I think they can use pretty effectively. Jared McCain hasn't even played yet. Paul George hasn't played yet. They're going to get better. Like, do I think they're going to be able to defend at a high enough level to do anything in the playoffs? Probably not. But do I think they've like maybe found something where long term, like this is Maxey and VJ's team, where like Embiid is like he can be secondary to that. He can come off the bench or like low minute starter or something. But like over the next year or 2 years, they're going to retrofit this team, rebuild it in such a way that it can be fully around those young, fast guards. But those guards are something, and they looked kind of dead in the water for a lot of last season. And thankfully, that's no longer the case. So a pretty optimistic start for them, I think. Another team that's like sort of in that boat where we kind of thought it might be over, but it's looking a little bit more optimistic right now. I want to talk about the Bucks. And I was originally planning to talk about Skinny Luka in this segment. I think the fact that he's hurt, let's hold off a little bit and maybe touch on that when he gets back, and we'll see how he looks. The Bucks are like kind of interesting, and there are a few things going on here that I want to talk about. First of all, they're cobbling together this guard rotation with minimum signings and like guys they got off the scrap heap, like Kevin Porter Jr., Ryan Rollins. Cole Anthony was great for them the other night when they beat Toronto. This has me thinking maybe small guards, the supply has just outpaced demand by so much that teams should never invest in them anymore. And you should always be thinking the way Milwaukee does, where like, yeah, we're just going to sign 4 of them. We'll see which 2 work and we'll go from there. I don't think you can do that if you're trying to win a championship. But if you're just trying to do what they're doing, which is stay afloat, it's not the craziest thing. Doc has been not staggering Turner and Giannis, benching them at the same time. It's very, very strange. I don't get it, but it's kind of working. They're playing Cleveland as we speak. Cleveland's up 5 with 3 minutes to go. That's pretty competitive, all things considered. They won their first 2 games. I continue to like veer a little bit in the direction that you took me the other day, which was they might be able to, they're not going to be a contender this year, but can they keep him like on board and satisfied long enough to get to the off season when then they can make their next robbing Peter to trade Paul or pay Paul move, where, you know, they trade 3 first-round picks and they get another guy in and they're like, okay, Giannis is satisfied, he extends. I'm not prepared to say I think that's going to happen. I think the Bucks have been better so far this year than I thought. The formula of Giannis plus shooting is working very, very well. And then we talked about the Spurs a lot earlier. We haven't talked about the Rockets. I almost think the trade saga we envisioned last offseason, where Houston and San Antonio are throwing around these monster packages, I kind of don't think that's really on the table anymore. I think Houston and San Antonio are both kind of just looking at themselves saying, like, We're happy with what we have. We don't need to totally remake our team in your image. For San Antonio, we think there will be a trade. I don't think it'll be a Giannis trade. I think they'll look for somebody younger and more of a shooter. For Houston, it's just going to guard, right? Houston, they have to be so happy with what they've seen out of Şengün, and then Thompson they'll see, but that'll be something that goes on throughout the year. If they can just get a guard in there, they probably feel like they already have enough. I don't think either of those teams are looking at the way they've started the season and thinking we have to remake our team totally in Giannis's image. So I think we're going to get to the offseason, and if there is a Giannis sweepstakes, it'll be different teams in the mix than the ones that we previously thought. So where are you at with the Bucks? Like, I know you're the one who kind of pulled me in this direction of like maybe they can pull this off. Where are you at now?
So still early. I'm not getting too carried away. They did play the Wizards and they played the Raptors. Yeah, I see right now they're playing the Cavs. I can't really see the score. Cavs up by 5 right now. So I want to see how they do against better competition. But I was never truly worried about, especially this year with how weak the East is, that they're probably going to be okay. I'm still not convinced they'll be a top 16, but they should probably be in the play-in team. But I do like how they really, really have gone all in on shooting around Giannis. They're not starting Kuzma or Taurean Prince anymore. They're just completely surrounding him with shooting, with AJ Green and Gary Trent starting. They had Kevin Porter. He's hurt right now, but Rollins, he's doing all right. So they should be fine. They should win enough games to be in the playoff mix, in which case I think we're going to get to January and they're going to start checking the temperature with Giannis, and I think most likely he's not going to want to get traded because the only team he wants to go to right now, they definitely can't really trade for him. And so their Bucks are going to be motivated to do something. I don't think they're going to pay a big price. I doubt they're going to trade a first round pick right now, unless it's for an all-star who has a long contract, and it's the type of thing where if Giannis gives us his blessing, he can't extend right now, but maybe give a good indication. Yeah,
Wink,
what?
Wink, wink.
Yeah. So I think that's going to come, which I guess we might as well just jump into Who Says No because it involves the Bucks. So let's do it. Our first Who Says No of the season for all those listeners who don't remember. Sam had a Who Says No podcast. I was a frequent guest on it. Great times. And this is one that I actually wrote about today on my Blazers article because with the Blazers, I think they might want to save some money in the future so they could potentially renegotiate and extend Deni Avdija after extending Tamani Kamara, Shaedon Sharpe. They don't really have they could make a big trade. They're not going to be a cap space player, but maybe they could use some cap space to get Avdija on a very team-friendly deal. So this trade, it involves the Bucks and the Blazers. Should I just give you the trade or should I give you the whole rationale first? Okay.
Tell me the trade and then explain it, and then I'll give my verdict.
This is too long. I'm just gonna.
Don't spoil the trade in the headline. You gotta say it.
Okay. We gotta discuss that
for the future.
All right. Well, I may as well just change it. Okay. So yeah, here's my trade. So I think the Bucks they're gonna be looking for something. Jeremy Grant so far. He's coming off the bench for the Blazers, doing pretty well in that role. Definitely probably going to be, if he keeps this up, he'll be a leader for Sixth Man of the Year. And probably doesn't want to be coming off the bench. For the Blazers, the trade is, okay, I didn't even say the trade. I wrote it up. The trade is the Milwaukee Bucks trade Kyle Kuzma and second round picks, 1 or 2 seconds for Jeremy Grant. The Bucks would have to include another minimum salary to make the money work. But essentially for the Bucks, they get Jeremy Grant, where if he can scale up the way he's playing offensively for a start, but as a starter, that's a good player the Bucks, I think, could really use right now. That they could afford. And then as far as the Blazers, so you're saving a bunch of money. You're saving $7 million a year. Kuzma has one less year left on his contract as well. His contract ends next year. Jeremy Grant's going to have a player option after next year. So you're saving a bunch of money. You're getting worse, even though Kuzma's probably going to come off the bench for them. But if you can get a little bit of draft picks out of it, and that helps you towards a potential Denny Avdija renegotiation, I think this is a deal that makes a lot of sense for both sides. What do you think, Sam?
What I like about it is that it could make you better. Like, I think Jeremy Grant is meaningfully better than Kyle Kuzma right now, but the cost is low enough. And the cost is really coming and taking on the extra year of the Jeremy Grant contract, right? Like, more than anything, Jeremy Grant has 3 years left, Kuzma has 2. If you're the Blazers, like, it's really valuable to you to get off of that last year of Grant because he's going to be much older and probably worse at that point. For the Bucks, having that extra year doesn't really mean much because all you're trying to do is get to the finish line, which is this offseason, get the extension from Giannis. Having that extra year on the books doesn't really hurt you that much at that point. Like, once you have the signature, you can figure out what to do with this contract later. You're not giving up like a super valuable unprotected first to improve. You're giving up basically money to improve. And they've already done that with the Damian Lillard wave and stretch. Do I think it was the best idea? No, we talked about this at the time. But I mean, if you're going to be terrible then anyway, it's like, who cares? It's money anyway. So I think that does make some sense. I think that would make them meaningfully better this year. Portland's getting off of that last year. It's helpful to them. I would do it if I were them. I think you found a pretty good trade. I'm into it. I would accept it. Good trade.
But who says no?
No one. I think it goes through. I think this is like a trade that could very plausibly happen during the season. Now, if Jeremy Grant keeps playing the way that he does, and Portland is still fixated on, oh, we're really trying to win this year, then maybe they don't. But if the season kind of spirals, the investigation into Chauncey hangs over them, and they're like, you know what, let's just get out of this contract, I think then it's a little bit likelier. If I were Portland, I would do this. And if I were Milwaukee, I think I would do it too. I think it's a good trade. Yeah.
Let me give you a slightly more difficult one. It's a variation of this. The Bucks trade Kuzma. This is something a friend pitched to me, and I was very intrigued. Kuzma and probably a bigger salary, like a Bobby Portis probably, to bring in Michael Porter Jr. Now, if you're the Nets, I think they're probably going to demand the first round pick just because that's going to be their price at this point. They probably won't be motivated to do this after. Michael Porter Jr. off to like a pretty solid start. He's got a lot of leeway right now. I don't necessarily think that this means that you'll be able to replicate this exactly elsewhere, or it'll like translate to like a huge impact. But what do you think about that one? Knowing like if Michael Porter Jr. can really be a knockdown shooter, I think his skill set would translate a lot more for what the Bucks are looking for.
I would not give up a first rounder for Porter Jr. Certainly. Like, maybe you could talk me into it with seconds, but he also, like, I would not trust him to defend threes, like, at all. And that's what he'd have to do if you're going to have this Giannis Turner front court. I probably
agree.
wouldn't. I like the Grant version of the trade better. I think that fits more defensively, costs less, and like the ways in which it would cost a lot are ways that don't really matter to them given where they are. So I like the Grant version of the trade better.
Yeah. All right.
I just want to talk about a player, and I'll throw out a couple of teams. Can you tell me how many minutes Jose Alvarado has played this season?
I know he was a DNP in the first game.
We're going to actually measure this in seconds. He has played 208 seconds.
This is just
28 seconds.
It pisses me off. I kind of understand. I kind of understand, but at the same time, like,
they don't know what they're
you can't
doing.
You can't like if you're looking like they've been playing Jordan Hawkins a little more, which okay, I guess I understand they need more shooting, but Jose Alvarado just better. Like, that. But at least you're keeping him on ice in case they do trade him, because I think they could get a pretty nice return for him. I don't know how nice, but they'll get positive value.
Yeah, well, I'm going to throw out a couple, like Dalton Connect and the 2032 Lakers second. That's all they have to trade, but like I would do that as the Lakers in a heartbeat. They would love Jose Alvarado with the Lakers. They badly need a guard who does what he does. Dallas, too. If you're talking about like you need a guard defender, how many seconds does it take? Or like, is there a veteran there that you could maybe do that would make some sense? Like, I haven't, who says no. My like official submission to the Who Says No Cannon is Dalton Connect and the 2032 second. But I want to throw out Dallas as well. There are a lot of teams that could use Jose Alvarado. Milwaukee could use Jose Alvarado. 3 minutes and 28 seconds of playing time for him is unacceptable. Like, he is really good, and we got to get him onto a team that actually wants to use him.
Okay, so I'll just quickly touch on where, the Bucks, I could see it making sense because if they just have all this big hodgepodge of guards, if they just want to consolidate that at the trade deadline, if you can just turn one of those minimum guys into a sure thing like Jose Alvarado, while only giving up like a second or two, I love that. Dallas, not quite as much because it's just them falling into the same traps, right, where I think Jose Alvarado would definitely help them, but right now they need like a point guard, like they need someone who could like really like above average starting level run an offense. And this will get to like my consolidation submission, but as far as yours for the Lakers, I think if at that point, if I'm the Lakers, I would try like I would want to keep Connect. I think I want to I think I want to aim a little lower with the way the Pelicans, just because the way the Pelicans are valuing Jose Alvarado, like clearly they don't value him. I feel like if you're the Lakers, you might be able to get him just mainly for the seconds. What if
they only have 1 second is the thing. If they had 5 seconds to trade, we could talk. They have to find some player value in the trade, which is why Connect, and they're not using Connect.
I think the Lakers say no because so far Marcus Smart has been a plus minus monster for the Lakers so far this season. Maybe monster's too far, but like even though his box score is like pretty empty, when he's been on the court, he's been like pretty massive for the Lakers so far. So right now, based on how that's going, I feel like they'd feel more comfortable leaning on him. But what I'm countering is that what if you can get away with trading Gabe Vincent or just one of their other bigger salaries to make that happen? The
other reason I pitch the Connect thing is you do Connect for Alvarado, and now suddenly you can have no guilt in combining Vincent and Kleba, and you have $20 million to go spend elsewhere. Like, ideally go get a defensive forward, and like, you pull that off, now you're cooking with gas here a little bit. Like, you essentially think of Alvarado as the Vincent replacement, and then you aggregate the Vincent Kleba expiring, get a defensive-minded forward, and now your team looks a lot better.
Yeah, I will say I think this is more closer to the realm of both teams just do it, especially if Dalton just doesn't remain a part of the rotation, which that's not like when this team is fully healthy, he's not expected to be a regular part of the rotation. So I would guess that I could see the Lakers doing that. It is like a Lakers type of trade also to do this, like this exact type of framework. But if I had to pick a team who says no, I would guess the Lakers just try to save Connect and try to send somebody else instead. Just a quick one, because I was talking about Orlando. I could see, I guess I don't even want to say who says no. I just want to throw this out there. But maybe there's something that could be done where if Tyus Jones doesn't work out for the Magic, maybe they trade him to the Mavs. Maybe it could be a 3-teamer that involves the Nets. Maybe the Pacers. The Pacers desperately need a guard right now. Like, the fact that they haven't waived one.
It's a fake year for them. They don't desperately need anything.
So no, okay, then let's maybe a little. Then let's get
TJ McConnell onto a team that's going to win this year. That's what let's do with the Pacers.
So then let me put this out there. Is it possible the Pacers are intentionally not going after any guard right now because that would hurt? Because that would hurt. That would mean that would like equate to them not winning regular season games and potentially going up in the lottery.
No, by the way, I want to point this out. I as of this recording, the Celtics are 0-3 and the Pacers are playing against Minnesota. If they lose, they'll be 0-3.
I would say I'll push back on the Celtics. I think
quicker than we thought.
The Celtics they're trying. They're actually trying to win the game.
They are trying. I'm not saying they're not. I am saying somebody's going to get tendonitis on like December 1st, and somebody else is going to have an elbow thing. And like guys are going to start disappearing sooner than later because their front court is just decimated. They can't get a rebound. You can win games this way.
Pacers, as of now, up 4 on the Wolves midway through the third quarter. Oh, wait, no, they're up 2 now. Towards the end of the third quarter. So I'm thinking, what if there's something, forget about the Pacers, but maybe the Mavs, something around like sending Jaden Hardy to the Nets with a second. They bring in Tyus Jones, and the Magic just clear off Tyus Jones $7 million, get under the tax. What do you feel? It's like a very low stakes trade, but just something I could see. A couple teams just kind of accomplishing little minor goals together.
I would like the idea of giving Jaden Hardy like a chance to have a bigger, higher usage role on a bad team. I feel like Cam Thomas would kind of take offense to that because Jaden Hardy is just kind of like a less heralded version of that, essentially. I think he has more upside than that. But I like that. I think that's an interesting idea. I don't know if you saw Cam Thomas 40.0 assists today in a Nets loss to San Antonio. So it's going to be a fun Cam Thomas year.
Yeah. Well, that's it.
That's just about do it for us here today. Yossi, what do you want to plug?
I want to plug Third Apron, the podcast. Please, everyone, if you enjoyed this, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Sam and I are going to keep putting out good discussions over the coming season. Make sure you subscribe to the Substack. The link is in the description. That's where you could get some really good salary cap analysis about NBA teams. I just released a post this morning on the Blazers. I already discussed throughout the podcast what that's about. And I am having a sale right now, 20% off annual subscriptions. So take advantage of that. Sam, what do you want to plug?
Read CBS Sports. I am just going through the beginning of the season, trying to write every day, most days. There's plenty of stuff going on right now. I'm doing plenty of stuff. My coworker's doing a lot. So just read CBS Sports. We've got lots of cool stuff coming up. But that's going to do it for the Third Apron podcast here today. I am Sam. That is Yossi. I think we'll be back at some point this week. We haven't set a date, but that is the plan. So we will speak to you guys soon. So long. Farewell. I don't know how to end podcasts. Goodbye.
Goodbye.